Today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp.
It's bound to happen. Every podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. So if we aren't sponsored by BetterHelp at some point, especially because it's you and I, then the world is not right.
Some mentally ill biatches.
Everyone is, let's be honest.
Oh, yeah.
We're just more open about it, I think.
We share with the people. We let the people know.
We do. Speaking of letting the people know, let's tell them about our podcast.
Yeah! Welcome to Banned Books for Brunch.
Yeah. What do you have for your snack for brunch today?
I have some sugar, crunchy caramel sea salt chocolate bar.
Ooh, looks yummy. Can never go wrong with caramel.
Do you have a snack or are you posing?
I guess I'm just posing. I don't have a snack.
Poser!
But I had, like an hour ago, a pork chop with goldfish and some strawberries. So I'm not really hungry for a snack or a brunch.
Stunning. Hey, who the heck are you? Who are you? Tell the people.
Okay. My name is Sierra, and I am a co-host of Banned Books for Brunch. And who are you?
Hi, my name is Em. I am the other co-host of Banned Books for Brunch, and we can't wait to share with all you people on the internet and beyond the importance of cracking a book, especially if it's banned. What even is a banned book?
Oh, it's funny that you ask. So the main purpose of this podcast is to raise awareness and shed light on the many books that are deemed controversial or banned. Book bans serve the interests of groups that have long sought to dismantle public education and shut down conversations about important issues. We do not want to have a part in that, and so we want to encourage anyone listening to read banned books as well. It's important to make sure that these books continue to exist and that we are also supporting the authors writing them. Not only because it is their livelihood, but because they are writing about something important that people should know about. Not to mention, we might also go over other books that are not necessarily deemed banned, but provide facts and education that we think are important for everyone to know. These might include topics that we think we should have learned in school, but didn't, or any information we deem important to speak about. We want everyone to know that these books belong, and so do you.
We're talking to you out there. Yeah.
And you.
And you.
Thanks. Did I miss anything?
No, I don't think so. Should we crack straight on?
I think so. So I think you should grab a smack roll, sit back, and join us for brunch. So you all have the pleasure of listening to me today. I will be telling the first story, and our first ever book for our overview for Books for Brunch is called Out of Darkness. And this is a book that is on the American Library Association's list of most banned books. It is said to have sexually explicit content, but despite this, the book was awarded the Michael L. Prince Award for Excellence in Young Adult Literature. When I was doing some research on this book and author, I thought it would be important to point out something that today's author, Ashley Hope Perez, said in an interview she did with NPR. She said, quote, "Book banners often cite, quote, sexually explicit content, end quote, as the reason for objecting to books in high schools. What distinguishes the targeted titles, though, is not their sexual content, but that they overwhelmingly center the experiences of BIPOC, LGBTQ+, and other marginalized people," end quote. Which I think was just a really good statement to kick this episode off of.
It's also just funny, or not funny, but like, I don't know, I feel like it's so true. Like, thinking back to the books I read in high school, like, there were no books available, to my knowledge, about, like, the queer experience, or, like, the gay experience, or, like, about anything about, and, you know, when you come from rural America, like we did.
As we did.
I feel like there's no better way to expose yourself to like differences and like other ways of life than in books. So it's pretty crazy that that's a thing that people are trying to like take away.
Yeah.
Hey, don't do that. Hey, celebrate diversity.
Yeah, we don't want that to happen. Hence the reason we're here. So
that's why we're doing it.
Yeah. Other reason I wanted to point this out is because I have a feeling that many of the books we'll end up covering, including the one we're going to talk about today, which use the term sexually explicit content as the reason behind it being banned. It's because, I mean, that's the reason. It's because a lot of the books we talk about are going to have that topic. And the camera's zooming on your face. That's hilarious. I love that it's doing this. It's like I'm watching a movie. Or like there's a Snapchat filter on your face. Oh my God. All right, moving on. And I just want to make it clear, if you can't already tell, Em and I do not agree that this is a good enough reason or a real reason at all to decide that a book should be banned. Okay, so we got that out there. So now we're going to move on to getting some background info on the author, because I think knowing about the author is just as important as knowing about the book, especially for the topic that we're discussing. Ashley Hope Perez has a PhD in comparative literature from Indiana University, where she focused on Latin American literatures, and is now an associate professor teaching world literatures at Ohio State University. In an interview done through NPR, Ashley said, quote, "At the beginning of 2021, Out of Darkness had been on library shelves for over 5 years without a single challenge or complaint. As we reached the end of 2022, it has been banned in at least 29 school districts across the country." So that's pretty wild. It's a lot.
Yeah.
In a short period of time, too.
Yeah.
Since the beginning
like
of her book, yes, I agree. Since the beginning of her book entering the spotlight to be banned, she has used her insights as a literary scholar, novelist, and educator to advocate for public school students and their right to experience diverse literature as a space for learning, discovery, and growth. Other notable books written are called The Knife and the Butterfly, What Can Wait, and she was also a contributor to a book titled Rural Voices, which is a compilation of 15 authors challenging assumptions about small-town America. I think that sounds super interesting.
Yeah.
Ashley also grew up in East Texas, near the location where this book takes place, so that's pretty cool as well. Now we're going to get down into the nitty-gritty of the actual book. There are a lot of different characters I'm going to go over throughout today's episode, so if you get confused, I apologize, but I'll try to be as clear as possible, and if you have any questions, but right in there.
With them.
Yeah. Okay, so the book starts off with a prologue with the date of March 18th, 1937. The book starts off with a pretty grim setting in an East Texas town in March 1937. Parents, Red Cross members, and other community members are gathered around the ruins of a collapsed school while they all search for remains and survivors. You're left wondering how this happened, and the section of the book ends with a quote saying, "Someone to blame, someone to make pay." End quote. So this is how we start the book off. A really sad scene, not knowing what happened or how. Obviously, it really drives you in. You want to know what happens. So let's find out. Next section of the book is titled The Explosion. The date of this is the same day, March 18th, 1937, but just a little bit earlier in the day. Wash, one of the main characters who you'll hear about through this whole book, is working at Superintendent Mr. Crane's house to save money to take him and Naomi, who is his girlfriend, to Mexico to begin a new life, when all of a sudden he hears a roaring boom and the ground shakes underneath him. The school is collapsing and he sprints toward the building because that's where his girl is. He ends up entering the building, even though it's crumbling, and finds it caving in on him. He finds a shoe on the ground that he recognizes, which we're led to believe is probably Naomi's, but we don't find out. That's where the chapter ends. So, still, have no idea what's going on, whatsoever. It was pretty crazy. Yeah, so now the next section in the book is called Before. And we're rewinded back to September of the year before in 1936. And here we're introduced to Beto, Carrie, and Naomi. They're all siblings that recently moved to the area with their new, quote, daddy, whose name is actually Henry. Daddy is what they're supposed to call him. Kind of weird if you ask me that they're told to call him daddy. Usually you want to call your dad, father, dad, daddy because you want to, not because you're told to.
Yeah, it's not it.
No, sure isn't. I don't have the best vibes about this guy already, obviously. I don't think you do either. He also changed all the kids' names before enrolling them in school to Robbie, Carrie, and Naomi Smith, taking away their names given to them by their mother before she died. But even though Henry thinks of them differently with different names, like Beto was changed to Robbie, I'm going to keep calling him Beto throughout the whole book because that's his name.
No, Henry haters only.
Nope. Beto is a sweet, eager-to-please boy, and Carrie doesn't really care what anyone thinks of her. So they are twins, but they're pretty different. She's much more defiant and outspoken. So I'm going to read an excerpt from page 32 to kind of explain and give an example of the different dynamics between the siblings. So this chapter is from Beto's point of view, and it says, all around Beto, sweating pink faces nodded to the rhythm of murmured and hollered amens. The preacher paced and shouted at the front of the tent, coming close to the revival crowd, then veering back behind the plywood podium. The wages of sin is death, he shouted with his fists raised high. You know out there. Sweat rolled down his face. His dark beard and sharp cheekbones made him look like the cards with Jesus and the martyred saints that Abuelita pinned to the wall around her altar. And if you're not aware, Abuelita is grandma. His grandmother. Beto was afraid to blink, desperate for the answer, desperate to know how to be safe, how to be saved. Terror swelled inside him, and he clutched the fan someone had given him. Beside him, Naomi held her shoulders back, swaying a little. Her fan lay abandoned in her lap. Henry's eyes were fixed on the preacher. Carrie was tracking a fly, clearly bored. How did she not see that they were in danger? The wages of sin is death, are they not, my brothers? This time the preacher whispered the words, closing his eyes as if he was in pain. Amen, the voices in the crowd called together. But the gift of the Lord is eternal life. Mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, young and old, we are all sinners, every one. The words thundered out at them. So, just from that little part of the book, you can kind of see the difference between the three siblings. Beto was obviously taking this whole situation a lot more seriously than Carrie, who didn't seem to care at all.
No.
Carrie doesn't care.
Carrie doesn't care.
And this tracks through a lot of the book, too. You'll find out. So it seems that early in the book, Naomi is somewhat of a mother figure to her younger siblings. She walks them to school, makes sure that she picks them up after school, cooks them all meals, and reminds them to follow the new rules that their, quote, daddy has given them. She does all of this while she also goes to school and has to deal with being picked on by classmates for being Mexican. This whole time, we aren't exactly sure why Naomi hates Henry so much until she recaps some of the memories she has from when she was a child and her mother was still alive. Now we're going to get a little background on Henry and what a piece of shit that he really is. Naomi could hear Henry and her mother in the bedroom next to hers as a child having sex. She could also hear her mother crying after each time, which is pretty traumatic, especially for a child to go through.
Mm-hmm.
He would also make Naomi touch him in inappropriate ways, and to get her to do so would tell her that it was all she had to do to keep her mother safe, which is so manipulative and disgusting. Oh my God, it's so gross.
Just not consensual at all.
No, and she's a child. Like, what kind of sick person? Ugh. And as if it couldn't get any worse, because of course it can, he liked to sleep around with prostitutes in his, all the free time he had. And after Estelle had her second miscarriage, in 6 months, he said that it was his right when the doctor recommended abstinence and to not get pregnant ever again. That wasn't enough, though. Estelle ended up becoming pregnant with the twins and died not long after giving birth, which is just so sad.
Mm-hmm.
And such a, the whole situation around is just really sad.
Horrible.
Yeah. So now Naomi can't stand to look at him. She doesn't even want to touch the things he touched. She hates even smelling him, which is understandable. Like,
smell is a really powerful, like,
yes. Brings back memories and certain feelings, all of that
sense.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All of it repulses her, and she just has to pretend that it doesn't. She's afraid that Henry will send her back to her grandparents and keep the twins for himself. And she decides that she can't let that happen. So Henry, I'm not going to call him daddy unless I have to, which I don't think I'll have to. So Henry moved the 3 kids from San Antonio to New London, all based on the reasoning that his pastor told him to. You're kind of crumpling a lot.
Told him to. I am.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Is it your candy? Your chocolate?
Maybe.
That's okay.
I need to wrap it up so the little bugs don't get it.
Oh, yeah, that'd be terrible.
Okay, I'll be perfectly quiet.
Okay. Or else you're going to meet yourself, so.
Oh, that's smart.
I'm just kidding. You don't have to meet yourself.
Mouse. Okay, good.
Alrighty. So Henry moved the kids from San Antonio to New London, all based on the reasoning that his pastor told him to. In the pastor's words, Jesus was calling on Henry to act and that he should bring the kids, quote, home. Henry was never really sure about this, but eventually agreed, found housing through his job. He works in the oiled fields, right?
Yeah.
And asked the kids' grandparents if they could come live with them. We also find out that only the twins are his biological children. So Naomi was born when her mother was married to a different man. He ended up drowning, and then Estelle, who is Naomi's mother, met Henry. We know that Henry feels a lot of guilt because of this, but we are unsure why. He also finds it very important that the kids adjust and enjoy their time in their new home. So he's putting a lot of pressure on himself at this time to make everything perfect.
Yeah, it sounds like he better because he's such a piece of shit.
I love the Zoom.
I don't know why it's doing that. I don't know if it's like a setting or what.
The spotlight is really on you.
All lies on the moon, sun with ring just like a circus.
Oh, I haven't heard that in forever. Lady Gaga, right? Circus? No, Britney Spears. God.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like,
I knew that was wrong as soon as it came out of my mouth. Alrighty, so now we found out that Wash meets Naomi in the woods and only noticed her because her shoe fell off of her foot. She was up in a tree, he noticed her and tried to be charming by asking if she wanted help down, but she wasn't having any of it. She wasn't much of a talker. Wash immediately likes her because of this. Yeah, she is strong, very independent. I mean, she has to be when she's, basically the head of the household.
Truly.
They begin to see each other more when Beto and Carrie meet Wash, and he teaches them how to fish and generally just hangs out with them down by the river. Wash also took the 3 of them to his town, which is called Egypt Town, to get groceries. And they did this because the store closest to where they live only allows people that are not white during certain hours of the day. And when they are allowed in the store, they are given worse quality products and produce. Like the produce that the white people didn't want, maybe it was moldy, bugs are in it, whatever. They get all the leftovers that nobody wants. So it's just horrible, stupid. So Wash offered to help them out because he's a good guy. This ended up not being totally a great solution either because the nice man who owned the store in Egypt Town warned Naomi that she should do her best not to visit too often and to not converse with others when she is in the store. His reasoning was that people are always trying to look for a reason to talk, and even though he did tell her this, it seemed like he genuinely did care about her. He just didn't want anything bad to happen because she was coming into the store. By this point, it seems like Naomi is facing racism and discrimination no matter where she goes, from the people owning storefronts to classmates to her teachers. She only has her siblings and Wash, even if she doesn't realize it yet. She's trying to keep her distance from him. going on to the next month in October of 1936. Things started to change one day when Henry took the twins out to breakfast, and Naomi had to stay behind because Mexicans were not allowed in the diner. The twins were supposed, which, funny, so all the children are Mexican, but because Henry is the twins' father, their complexion is a lot lighter, so they're not as dark as Naomi, so they can pass for white, and that's why he will take the twins out, but Naomi has to stay home.
What the heck?
I know, isn't that sad?
So sad. Makes me really upset.
It's super fair to Naomi.
Right.
So the twins were supposed to be meeting Wash at the river to fish, and because of this, Naomi walked down to tell Wash why they wouldn't be there to meet him. It was then that Wash started to help Naomi with her schoolwork because she was kind of struggling. Teachers at this point and throughout her whole life, just because she was Mexican, basically had given up on her before she even was able to demonstrate what kind of knowledge she had. So in the book, there was an example where, let's say there's a Mexican in high school. The books they would be given were elementary books because they were just believed to be so stupid that they could never understand the content that was taught in high school to white children. After this, they started seeing each other more, but it didn't last long because one night, Wash brought the twins over to his house for some pie, and for some reason, Naomi, I guess, was just curious and was watching them through the woods. It was kind of creepy, but I mean, teenagers do weird things.
You know, especially in the 30s. It's not like she could sit on TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah, I had no electronic whatsoever. Yeah, so she's watching them hang out at Wash's house through the trees, and all of a sudden, she sees Wash and another girl leave his house, walk down the sidewalk in front of his house, and this girl's arm is like looped through Wash's arm, and he's guiding her down, and they're like laughing together and smiling. So this made her feel really jealous. What'd you say?
It's heartbreaking.
Yes. Yeah, basically. She was trying not to like him this whole time because she knew that there were different races and it just wasn't a thing that was like allowed back then and it would never be approved by anybody. So she was trying to suppress her feelings. And when she finally like lets a little bit through, she gets shot down.
Yeah.
Without him even shooting her down.
I like that that's such a relatable, like, I don't know. The author really was like, don't mind me. The author was really like,
I thought we were putting these videos on YouTube.
We can. That's why I was very demure about it. Very demure, very cute.
You did that very smoothly. You're right.
Thank you. Anyway, I like how the author is like playing on things that are very relatable. Like everybody remembers their first, at least I remember like the first time my crush like was with another girl. I was like, how could you? Maybe we should leave that. How dare you, Nebraska? Nebraska. I must have felt exactly like
Naomi hiding in the trees
right now. Yeah.
Yeah. But you can still relate to it, which is the sign of a good author. So
yeah.
And like I mentioned earlier, this book is targeted or is like written for young adults. And I mean, I'm not totally positive, but I think young adults are like high school age people, right?
Yeah.
So like we're not young adults anymore. We are adults. But this book is like still very good to me and relatable. So
yeah.
It's good. Okay, so to continue with Naomi feeling stupid, she decided to not really talk to Wash because she feels betrayed. So now moving on to November 1936, things start to take a little downturn in this month. Both of the twins got sick with the flu. Naturally, Naomi is the one taking care of them. After dropping off some saltines and ginger ale off at the house, Henry went out to drink at the bar because he couldn't stand to be in the house when the kids were sick. He hates puke and he was being a wimp about it. Ugh. So he left. He couldn't even move some dirty sheets that they threw up on when Naomi asked him if he could help out. So he's pretty useless. That night, when Henry finally decided to come home, he brought a radio with him and it was broken. So not long after it started working, after Henry tried to fix it, it quit again. And so typically you would think this wouldn't be a big deal. It's not like a super huge thing. It's a radio that was already broken, just broke again.
This is what we call a small problem in occupational therapy.
Yes, and the radio was a big deal to the family at this time because this is the 1930s. They didn't have a ton of money. It's not like they had just random money sitting around to go buy things like this. So it was really exciting, but it's not like it was a life or death situation that was going to affect their lives, like their health and stuff like that. So because of all the pressure he's putting on himself to be a perfect father and a provider, he freaked out, threw the players across the room, and they only landed a couple feet away from Naomi. He stormed out of the house and didn't come back until half a week later. Not the next morning, half a week later. He just
crazy.
Yeah, like who does that? When he does return, though, he's on his best behavior, trying to act like nothing happened. He asks Naomi where she's been shopping for food since she hasn't been going to the store in town, and she ends up telling him. He gets mad all over again because it's a store owned by a black man, and he forbids her to shop there anymore. He goes so far as to say he is going to do the grocery shopping himself from now on, which is kind of a devastating blow to Naomi because up until now she was saving a little bit of the weekly grocery money and hiding it away in her own stash in case her and the twins ever needed to leave or run away on a sudden notice. Right. So this kind of puts a stop to her being able to save money in an easy way. During all of this, Naomi is doing her best to avoid Wash altogether, and when she does see him, she's pretty rude. He's aware that she's mad at him, but he can't figure out why. Throughout the month, he sends home different little gifts for the twins to give her. He even sent home some salve with the twins when she burned her arm and hand on grease really, really bad. So this burn was really bad, and she was kind of just left to deal with it on her own. Like, it's not like she went to the doctor or anything. So Wash naturally felt like he needed to take care of her and send the twins home with this salve that would help the pain and help it heal, which was really thoughtful. She just shoves all of these gifts to the back of one of her dresser drawers, tries not to think about them. It's also important to note that because I don't think I have said this yet, Henry knows the twins hang out with Wash and he doesn't like it because he's black. He has no other reason other than him not being white. He wants the kids to hang out with the white kids at school more instead of, quote, following the colored boy around, end quote.
Yikes.
Yep.
Sad.
Yeah, not great. Nothing super noteworthy happens the rest of the month. Naomi misses Wash, but would never admit it. The three kids all got warmer winter coats, and they went to the Kinnenbrew's house, which is just another family in the neighborhood, for Thanksgiving dinner. The twins still hang out with Wash as much as they can. So the kids are pretty attached to Wash at this point. They spend every free moment they can with him, and he loves them too. Like, he's almost an older brother to them at this point. And he's really good with them too. December 1936. This month starts with it being one of the coldest winters in a long time. Mr. Crane, who again is the school superintendent that Naomi goes to, he's complaining about the heating costs when Wash gets an idea that has to do with a bleed-off gas line he helped install that actually goes across school grounds. So he presents this idea to his father that he has, who is the principal of the black school that Wash attends. And he says that the school could tap into the gas line to save money and then use the extra money to help the school out by buying like supplies, fixing things up, stuff like just things that school needs, which is a very good idea. Like, he's a good thinker.
Hey, he's a smart kid.
Yeah. He plans on talking to Mr. Crane about this idea, but spinning it in a way that makes him think that he thought of it, not Wash, because unfortunately for a lot of people to buy into an idea, you have to make them feel like they own that idea. And they didn't think that Mr. Crane was gonna even listen to them if they didn't get him to think that it
was his idea.
yeah, like conjured this idea up in some way.
Yeah, I feel like it's very classic, like planting an idea in someone's head.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially when that person has a big ego.
Exactly. This is unrelated to what we've been talking about so far, but it's important to mention that so far in the book, there's been an instance in November with Naomi, and then in December with Wash, where masturbation takes place. And it doesn't go into great detail or anything. Each character is thinking of the other person. So we know obviously that they love each other. I mean, I don't know if they love each other. They really care about each other at this point in the book. And so now it seems we're getting into the content that resulted in the book being banned. Okay.
Okay.
So, like I said, in the instances where this took place, I didn't feel uncomfortable at all. It wasn't too much to handle. It didn't go into a ton of detail. Like it's not like it gave step by step instructions for like how you do this. So,
right.
Like I barely thought about it, but just because of the purposes for what this podcast is for, I wanted to mention it.
Right. So smart.
One day, thank you, thanks. One day when Naomi is cleaning the house, she finds a Colt revolver in the bedside table next to Henry's bed. It caught her totally off guard and made her feel shocked and unsafe, further solidifying her belief that only she was capable of keeping the twins safe. She immediately went down to the river to bring them home and make sure that they were still safe, but as she was calling to them to come home with her, Wash tries to talk to her yet again, and this time Naomi actually answers him. She tells him all about how she's upset that she saw him with the other girl walking outside of his house together. And even though Naomi is visibly upset, Wash starts to laugh.
Hello?
Yeah.
That is
So,
not chill.
no. Just wait, though. Don't lose faith yet. Naomi, confused as ever, is wondering why he would ever think that this situation is funny, but it doesn't take Naomi long to figure out why when the twins shout out that it was Fanny. So Fanny is Wash's blind relative, and he always walks her home after she's finished playing the piano at their house. So it was never like a girl he was courting or dating or anything. It was in fact his relative that was blind. So that's why she had her arm like looped through Wash's arm because he was like literally guiding her home.
Yeah. Jeez.
I know. So that's why Wash was laughing. So now that's all cleared up. Naomi feels pretty dumb because all that time she was mad at Wash, it was just because of a misunderstanding. And now that Naomi knows the real truth, she seemed to forgive him for something that he never did, which is good.
Yes.
No point in holding a grudge after that.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So now that's all cleared up. So now we can move on from that issue. Up until this point, each chapter was from the point of view of one of the characters I've talked about so far, whether it be Naomi, Beto, Wash, or Henry. But now some of the chapters are Wash and Naomi.
Ooh.
It's both of them. Ooh.
Oh my goodness.
Ooh la la.
Indeed.
Yeah. And it's important to say here that the book now talks about these two making out in the woods and about them, quote, touching each other. But none of it was graphic or obscene. It leaves much of what happens to the imagination. So now, to end the teaser episode, I will leave you with a quote from Naomi, which says, "For Naomi, everything had changed in the woods." End quote.
Oh, kissing in the woods. Oh my goodness.
And touching each other in the woods.
And here's what I'll say. I feel like for the youths, I don't know. I think it's just important to have none. Like, the internet is far worse than anything you're going to find on a library shelf.
That is a really good point. No, that's a really good point because I will talk about this. So, for anyone listening, this is a teaser episode. We didn't explain this in the beginning, even though we should have. So, this is going to be set up as a teaser episode first, and you'll get a brief description of what goes on in the beginning of the book. And we want to encourage you to read these books. So if you feel intrigued enough, you can find this book Out of Darkness and read the rest for yourself and find out what happens. But for those of you that don't like to read or just want to hear from us about the rest of the book, we're going to have a spoiler episode coming later that goes over the rest of it, so you won't miss anything. But in the spoiler episode, I do mention how often from my experience, shielding children from things like this never works in the way that a parent or guardian thinks it will, because things like this are going to be found out one way or another. And like you said, it could happen maybe from a book like this, or they could find something actually obscene online that you really don't want your child to see. And teenagers are just full of hormones, and whether we like it or not, they do things like this. So anything that happens in this book is not out of the ordinary at all whatsoever. No matter what you would like to believe, it's just not true. So yeah. What was the point of me saying that?
Just that it's important to have like an age appropriate example.
Yeah.
Which it sounds like it is, and also touches on really important topics like racism in America and like a POV of like what it's like to be not just a person of color, but like a brown person or someone who's Mexican. Like, I think it's just an important. I don't know. It seems like I am excited to crack it myself.
Yeah.
And give it a read. Yes.
Oh, yay!
True. You convinced me.
Oh, yay! I'm glad. I mean, that's the goal, right? And it's not just hearing their experiences about them like coming of age and the sexual things that are going on in their lives. It's also just about their struggles as people because of who they are. So
yeah,
what's a thumbs down for? You just did a thumbs down bubble above your face. You don't agree with what I'm saying? That's not good.
No, I agree. That's so weird. Does it go up?
There we go. Oh!
Yeah.
Mine's not doing it. Okay. Well, yeah, so that is our very first episode of Banned Books for Brunch. Anyone that's listening, we hope you enjoyed.
Yes.
We're really excited for this. Got anything to say?
Next one. And was there a quote? What was our end quote?
These books belong, and so do you. We'll get it eventually, yes. These books belong, and so do you. We want to make sure everybody knows that. Because those reminders are always good, no matter how often you get them. So
it's true. You belong with us, listeners.
You do. We love y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Goodbye.